real quick, if you've never seen Paul on social media, he has a really cool job. He gets to interview some really cool people because he works with B&B theaters, and so we found a clip.
Hey, ma'am. Do you mind? Sure. Thanks. Nice. There you go. That was fantastic.
So that's an example of some of the communication videos and things that he does for B&B Theaters. And so I'm going to now introduce, it is with my pleasure, to introduce, oh, excuse me, I just got like a glitch in my throat. But anyway, to introduce and bring up to the stage, podium area, Paul Farnsworth.
All right, well, thank you. I didn't know that you would be showcasing a little bit of my short form work.
Welcome.
So thanks. I was all worried about appearing credible in front of this audience, and you lead with that. Good morning. This is my first COTA. Good to be here. I appreciate the opportunity, and special thanks to the COTA committee, Helen in particular, for making this opportunity available to me and for extending this invitation. My name's Paul. It's good to be here. I've given quite a few presentations, I guess, talks, as it were, over my days. And it's typically pretty easy for me to figure out how to start with catch a little story or a joke or something that leads to the introduction of a theme. But there are a lot of things I feel like you'll need to eventually understand about me for my presence here to make any sense. What I do for a living, I think, my history with my industry, my observations that sort of link my work to your own, will hopefully begin to explain why in the world I'm here at a conference of this nature. And it's tempting to just kind of launch into that, to try to clear that up. But if you'll indulge me something of a meandering introduction, there are a couple of factors, I guess, details about my life that I'd kind of like to start with. That I think will provide some useful context for today. The first is that I am the child of two professional educators. I don't remember, yeah, okay. And that fact, I think in isolation doesn't really mean anything, but over the last couple of decades, I've come to appreciate how much my parents, and I think this aspect of my upbringing, has colored my perception of the world. My mom was an elementary school developmental math teacher. And so for the better part of 2 decades, she spent every single day working with children who felt less than, or who felt worthless, or who felt stupid. They didn't fit into the traditional sort of expectation of performance. And my mom wasn't doing anything more than her job. I mean, she's sort of a hero in her own right, I think. But like, she was showing up and doing her thing. But for many of these students, that time with her was not just another hour of math. It was a meaningful time, because these were kids who I don't think had much independent, specific instruction really anywhere else in their lives. These were kids who probably were often not prioritized in their own homes. And so for my mom and her teaching partner, this lady named Sally Johnson, they were creating for these children opportunities to be seen and to feel valuable and to be reminded that they are worth somebody's time. These were 2 full-time employees who were hired to do nothing more than spend individual time with these kids. My dad was a community college president for about 20 years. He moved to Neosho in 1985 when I was just a baby, and started working at Crowder. And Crowder at that time was, and still is, a significant part of the community conversation and the community economy in Neosho. And it's fair to say that the goings-on at Crowder College were often topics of discussion at the Farnsworth family dinner table. And my dad was and remains an utter diplomat. He never disparaged the institution, ever, certainly not in front of us. To the contrary, he talked about pride of institution and the strength and camaraderie of faculty and the importance of the pursuit of excellence before the pursuit of growth. These were things my dad talked about all the time. That said, my brother and I were still able to distill from those conversations some of the frustrations that I think he was facing. Budget, balance, value, alignment. These were things that were ongoing struggles for him as a community college administrator. The second thing, I guess it's already up there, you already know what it is. Well, I'll get to that in a second. You know what, my parents taught me that education is a privilege. And they also taught me that education, I think, can be a way of life. But more importantly, they started me on this pathway of appreciation that the system, there's an idea, I think, that the system and the people who work within the system should exist for a singular purpose. Whether you're teaching fractions to a third grader or sitting in the big chair at college, the system should exist to serve the individual. And I grew up believing that. The second thing over there, and has already been mentioned, is that I'm a product of the Missouri Collegiate Transfer System. So I graduated from Neosho High School in 2002. Go Wildcats. Heather Flint was a great enemy. She also went to Neosho. And I got my associate's degree from COTA College in 2004. Importantly, my dad wouldn't want me to say this, I could have gone tuition free because he worked there, but I got an A+ scholarship, doggone it, and did it the right way. And then I spent a couple of years doing international service, and when I came home, I finished my education, or planned on finishing my education at the University of Missouri in St. Louis. And I got married, yay! I didn't stay there, I had a great experience. I transferred. But I got married in 2007, my wife is here today. By the way, this is the first time that we've left our 3 children at home, completely unattended. So if I seem nervous today, it's because I don't know if I'll be returning home to a pile of ashes or a dead cat, or I don't know. We'll see. So just keep watching the texts. Anyway, she was at Maryville, but we decided that we wanted to start our married life in a more affordable housing market. So we moved away from Forest Park, which was great, back to Southwest Missouri, and we finished at Missouri Southern State University. I don't remember much about the transfer process, if I'm being completely honest with you. I remember needing several copies of several documents, and the whole thing had sort of a ring of bureaucracy about it, but it was a fairly painless process as far as I can recall. And I don't think if you'd have asked me to articulate the top 10 most impactful things in my life, the transfer would have made the list. But it positioned me in a way to take advantage of some opportunities to be in specific places at specific times, which I think I'll talk about shortly. You know, the important thing is that being able to smoothly move between these institutions and within this system shaped my trajectory and provided me with access and momentum, which in retrospect was incredibly valuable. Here's the thing. My parents taught me to love learning, I think, and my experience at various institutions across the state taught me that I could love learning in Missouri, and I do. And the execution and the smooth execution of these pathways really matters. This is where it gets a little bit dicey for me. When Helen asked me to do this, our paths crossed at this thing at Crowder, and I hadn't seen her in a while, and we kind of caught up. And then she sent me an email, and she's like, hey, would you think about doing this thing? And I said, well, I don't know anything about what you do, man. Like, no, I don't think I have a lot to add to that. Or it would be so presumptuous of me to show up and say, have you guys thought about this? And so I had a meeting with the COTA committee, and I was like, here's my observation. And they're like, no, I think there's value there. So I hope there is. I guess we'll find out together. Because I'm about to share something that I hope lands. Talking about these transfer pathways, I feel like the worlds or the countries, I don't know, relationship with, an expectation of, and interest in pursuing those pathways is evolving and changing. Okay. I don't know if you guys are going to be like, oh, it is, Paul, you're on the right track. I don't know. And I think it's worth considering how we can explore that new landscape and reconsider what experience means. These are things that I've been doing in my own work, and how systems and people and friction all work together. So that's kind of what I want to try to talk about. We can maybe go to the next one here, man. So I work for B&B Theaters, which is not really at all related to what you guys are doing. I've worked for B&B for 18 years. There's nothing in particular on this slide that you need to see other than these are the kinds of things that I deal with on the daily. I started with B&B in April of 2008 as the general manager of the Neosho 6 cinema, which is this one in the top left. And I was there for about 18 months before I moved to Wildwood to manage what was at our flagship location in 2010, something like that. And stayed there for about 4 years. Moved to Liberty, to the corporate office in 2014, and have been there ever since. When I started with B&B in Neosho in 2008, it was the 26th largest movie theater company in the country. And we have now grown to be the 5th largest and the largest privately held. So it's been a journey. There's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of opportunity. You can maybe go to the next one too. So one thing that has kind of happened is opportunities have been created as we've gotten a little bit larger. And I like this slide. It's colorful. It shows you kind of some exciting things that I've gotten to do. The career that I'm in has been an exciting one. It's a fun and a historic industry. There are lots of people involved in it, millions of people involved in this industry, from production to construction to bookings and programming and studio, exhibition, distribution, all that kind of stuff. It has survived world wars and depressions and recessions. It seems like an industry that's sort of bulletproof. And for me, that's great because that means job security, and I don't really have to worry about anything, because who doesn't like going to the movies, right? Right? Maybe. I mean, things are changing. That's the reality. That's kind of the point that I'm getting to, is that movie theater attendance is down. I think you might be able to go to the next one. I don't remember these slides. Yeah, okay. Versus pre-pandemic norms. Nobody wants to talk about the pandemic. I certainly don't. But it was a hinge point in a major way for our institution. And we're down from 2019, depending on who you ask, depending on which exhibitor you're talking to, between 25 and 39%. So imagine losing a quarter of your business in 6 years. That's happened to us. And within my industry, there are varying levels of fear and anticipation and sort of a reluctant acceptance that we may never return to normal. And for decades, the movies didn't require any justification at all. It's just what people did. It was sort of this default activity. Some folks went to the movies every month. There were people who went almost every weekend, which is great. But the pandemic broke a lot of habits for people. It forced growth in hugely competitive sectors. It changed social traditions and models that for decades had created record numbers for us. People aren't socializing like they did years ago. People aren't spending money like they did years ago. They're consuming content in completely new ways. And there are generational shifts in expectation occurring. Additionally, we are facing a revolution in competition. There are substitutes now for the theatrical experience that didn't exist years ago. They've gotten way better, they've gotten very cheap, and they're extremely convenient. At-home streaming, of course, is one of them. I'm a fan, man. Shorter theatrical windows. That basically the amount of time that a movie's on screen before it goes to VOD or streaming service or whatever. Used to be like 90 days, now it's as short as 17. So you can understand that would be a problem for us. The proliferation of short-form entertainment, mobile gaming, these were all conditions that improved over the last 6 or 7 years while my position maintained reasonably constant. So streaming and TikTok, they haven't killed theaters. but they have done traumatic damage to the idea of a default experience. Because they're cheap, they're easy, and they're good enough. When I was a kid, we often went to the Eastgate Dickinson Theater in Joplin, Missouri, in the Sears Plaza. You're nodding like you've been to Eastgate. Right on, man. Not anymore. Because not only is Sears gone, but the days of the dollar theater are long, long gone. Guests at the movies, and I think thoughtful, responsible people everywhere, are more cognizant of price sensitivity than ever before. Matter of fact, our research, independent research, finds that guests are more thoughtful of this than really anything else when it comes to their concern about going to the movies. And I mean, they're in a constant state of value assessment. You've got tickets and concessions, and then maybe you need a babysitter, maybe you have to pay for parking, not to mention the value of your time, and the fact that what you're watching might be terrible. People have lost confidence in the product. And so it's no longer a matter of like, let's go to the movies, what's playing, which is something that we used to say to each other. We're like, let's go to the movies, man. What are we gonna watch? We'll figure out when we get there. And now it's like, is there anything even worth leaving the house for? But most critically, I think, we're living in a commercial and social and entertainment landscape that is increasingly populated with digital natives. I'm always reluctant to qualify people based on their generations, but it's a thing. Gen Z, that's 16 to 29, which is kind of like maybe your sweet spot too, maybe. They have never known a world of inaccessibility. And friction is their kryptonite, man. It kills their interest and their ambition. And I don't mean work necessarily or challenge, I mean avoidable inconvenience. And if a scenario or a situation is not overtly and seamlessly convenient, it is deemed inferior. Perhaps justifiably so. The big screen experience and the cinema industry is important to me, but it is evolving in an unprecedented way. So here's my let's see and find out. As I was reviewing some of the challenges that my industry is facing, I wonder if any parallels emerge across your respective channels. I don't know. Have trends been emerging in recent years in your institutions? I do not know your industry, but I have seen some nodding heads here. I wonder if continuing education is a harder sell now than it was 5 or 10 years ago, or 2 years ago. Are there cheaper and more convenient alternative options to traditional education that have perhaps started to clutter or maybe even dominate the landscape? Does the perception of inconvenience or the anticipation of friction impact the level of interest, commitment, and enthusiasm of your students? I think it's possible that we are both working in industries that have evolved out of our heyday. And what was once habitual and routine and predictable and default maybe isn't anymore. So I think for the first time in our mutual histories, the relevance of our industries and institutions is being questioned. What was once the default pathway has now become a very intentional choice on behalf of the people that we're meant to serve. We, in the movie theater business, lost people because habits changed, alternative competition outpaced us, the perception of value was weakened, and friction complicates the ease of entry. And frankly, for us, also disinclines repeat visits. And this one is big. The painful reality that maybe we weren't offering what people wanted anymore. Or maybe we weren't offering it in the way they wanted it. So, what I think that is to say movie theaters and colleges and universities and wherever else you guys are from, I think we need to suggest and invite and affirm that some choices, and yes, these are choices that will require action and work and a degree of inconvenience, still offer a value proposition that cannot be found anywhere else. I spoke on a panel recently in Austin it's called the Dine-In, what's it called? It used to be the Dine-In Cinema Summit. The Dine-In Cinema Summit, which is DICS. So they changed it this year to the Dine-In and FEC Summit, which is Family Entertainment Center Summit. Anyway, they had some fun merch. So, but this was a fun convention. The tone of this convention was very different than a lot of the cons that I go to because the studios were not present. So, I'll get into this in the Q&A maybe, but we have an interesting relationship with film studios. It's generally not a good one because they hold all the cards, all the keys, whatever, and they take advantage of it. They weren't at this convention though, and so the mood of this convention was very honest and candid and frankly fairly refreshing. There was a panel, this is not the one I was on, but that was meant to address the threat of the shrinking theatrical window. And so they had 5 legacy theater owners who were all white guys. I'm talking like they're in their like late 80s probably, and they've been around forever. Year after year after year being taken advantage of, and they're bitter and resentful. And they didn't pull punches, man. They said, they were very honest about the way that they felt about their relationship with the studios. And they made no effort to hide their disdain. And one of those managers decried from the stage, "We are not in the movie business anymore. We're in the advertising business. The studios, they just temporarily give us their movies. We raise awareness until they hit some streaming service, and that's where the studios make all their money." He's like, "It's been this way actually since the advent of VHS. Do you remember those?"
Yes.
Man, I tried to here's the thing, this is a sidebar. I'm giving a hospitality training at our management summit next week. It's about Cheers. It's called the Cheers Doctrine.
Yeah.
Basically, like, what hospitality principles can you learn from this show that was on TV for like ever? And all these people were like, "What are you talking about? What show is this you're talking about?" So I gotta update my pop culture references. Anyway, that guy said that thing at the conference. And another theater owner argued with me, said, "Man, this is why we have to pivot. You're right that we're not in the movie business, we're in the entertainment business. And we need to consider non-theatrical attractions like bowling lanes, arcades, restaurants, bars. If you diversify your offerings, then you can restabilize." And as a point of order, there's a lot of truth to that. He was onto something. They both were, honestly. And the halcyon days of movie palaces wrapping blockbuster lines are gone. And things do need to change operationally and foundationally for movie theaters to survive. B&B is the only top 10 theater company that continues to aggressively expand. Like AMC's and Regals are closing all the time. We are building, acquiring, remodeling a lot, more than we probably should. And that has something to do with the recognition, or maybe the admission, the concession that we need to be more than a movie theater. On that slide that I showed you, there are all kinds of innovative theatrical offerings that we're showing, like ScreenX, which is, I'll talk about this later if you care. But like things that are in movie theaters, auditoriums, reclining seating, all that stuff is fine, digital projection, but like Screenplay has a playground in the theater, and like there are Max Relax that are like Chase loungers. They're like, we're trying to do what we can within the theatrical space to make it interesting, but also non-theatrical things, like bowling alleys, and arcades, and food and beverage and stuff. We're messing around with karaoke rooms and go-kart tracks. It's changing. So overtly, and in a very literal way, we've become more than a big screen movie theater company, and that's good. But what has truly enabled our growth and stability during trying times, through economic hardship, and through this evolving expectation is our obsession over a truth that was not discussed or even discovered by that panel in Austin. You can go to the next slide, man. Sorry. I don't usually do slides. Yeah, whatever, that's fine. Because we've realized that over the last we've been in business since 1924, a literal century of family ownership. And it took us 100 years to realize that we are not, in fact, in the business of movies. And as we have grown, we've not redefined ourselves as bowling centers, or as arcade houses, or as restaurant labels, or even as an entertainment brand. We've found a foothold in our marketplaces and carved out a differentiator by realizing that we're in the business of hospitality and that our product is community. So with the ongoing, I say that as if we've achieved something. It's a process we're still very much in the throes of. This ongoing process of abandoning reliance on tradition and entitlement and focusing on building community and trust through the delivery of experience and the promise of a sentiment, not merely the guarantee of a product. And so my suggestion is perhaps, and again, let me reinforce that I don't really know what I'm talking about here, but maybe you are not exclusively in the business of education or transfer. And that the next evolution of growth for you, the rediscovery of social relevancy, even relative to your contributions in a completely different industry, might be found in a conscious shift to experiential appeal. And that students might be captured or recaptured through programming centered on community and empathy and awareness. So you might be in the business of hospitality too. I think that would be worth exploring individually, and maybe that can be provocative for some conversation for the rest of this conference. I am not a hospitality speaker. I don't have like a program or a resort in the mountains to pitch that we all go to. I'm just a guy. I love the business that I'm in, and I've seen it change over time, and I want to figure out how to sort of maintain its significance and continue to emphasize its value to as many people as possible. So we're up to our neck in this process at B&B right now, and it may be worth sharing some of the steps that we've taken to see how we've tried to make a difference and move away from the traditions of yesteryear into this brave new world of a shifted mindset. And the first of those is the first of those, to aspire for operational efficiency. Adam Aaron is the CEO of AMC. I never quote this guy, but I'm about to. He said, you can't just run a movie theater the old way anymore. The business has changed, and you have to be smart and strategic about everything from pricing to how you engage audiences, end of quote. Honestly, for decades at B&B, we ran pretty casual, fast and loose operations. And that's not to suggest that we were ever negligent or irresponsible. We just didn't really ever work harder than we had to. I mean, we just unlocked the doors and people came in. And we took their money. We did it again. We can't really do that anymore. And so when we decided to shift our mindset to focusing on the delivery of magical entertainment experiences, it occurred to us that we really needed to develop and train excellent operators well beyond competency. And also drive business success through an understanding of data. These are not things that motivate me, surface level. And they can be really hard conversations. That's probably why I don't like them. We, as an institution, had to put aside our pride and openly acknowledge underserviced areas within our organization. Our inventory management was inefficient. Payroll was sort of an afterthought. We didn't really track cost of goods. It was like 95 years we were doing this. And so before we could really start the process of creating magic, as it were, we had to get our ducks in a row. So for too long, we've been coasting on momentum and tradition. You know how the flight attendant says, like, in the event of a loss of cabin pressure, mask will fall from the ceiling. Those of you traveling with small children, be sure to get your own mask affixed before you assist others. That's the position that we were in. We had to establish a house of order. And part of our restorative focus came about as a renewed effort behind training and metrics and orientation and goals and mission and vision. We didn't have a mission statement or vision or core values until like 6 years ago. So we do now. We put out those fires first, and that honestly took the better part of like a year and a half. We looked at our teams, like all of them, objectively and honestly and painfully, and we acknowledged where we were lacking. We had honest conversations, we built out accountability, we tried to empower our operators and our site leaders to operate with autonomy, and we let go. This one might strike a chord. It struck a chord with my dad. I said we let go of systems that we were comfortable and familiar with, but that were no longer serving people. These were systems that served only themselves. I've been around long enough to know that schools are that way. I also acknowledge that operational inefficiencies probably exist within your respective atmospheres, but I don't know what kind of opportunity or control you have over those things. And we are all subject to systems that are deeply entrenched and ossified and beyond our individual touch, or so we think. But the step that I have just sort of generally described, I think, is the preliminary legwork that's required to begin to realize a meaningful change of experience for the people that you're meant to serve. I believe that preparation precedes power, and we recognize this fairly early on, I think, that we needed to change something, that we needed to adapt. And frankly, it did not sit well with some of our longtime operators. One of our district managers who'd been in the cinema space for like 20 years, he was like, man, I just want to show movies and sell popcorn. Like, I'm a movie guy. I don't need all this. And he left. And he found the change, I think, threatening. And there were a lot of other people in our institution, organization, who I think felt similarly, but they made space to be curious and to be willing to explore. One thing that we discovered, though, this is a pretty major reality, is that the pursuit of solvency and relevancy can become all-consuming. Numbers and key indicators and statistics, they do matter. And I believe that our respective industries cannot afford to discount those things or to presume that they will be achieved without dedicated, concerted effort. But those goals and ambitions and quotas can never be emphasized above the why. And I know that constant evolution is exhausting. I feel that way. But change, I think, becomes tolerable when meaning is clear. And we found that to be the case at B&B. I personally, I don't think I'm particularly resistant to change, but I do resist aimlessness. And the rediscovery of purpose didn't remove pressure from me or from us, but it justified it. And I think this is where things get a little touchy-feely. But let's go. Because I believe that the linchpin of our successful transition at B&B up to this point, perhaps the primary reason why we continue to grow and expand and innovate in an industry that is under the weight of constant pressure, is because we refuse to compromise on the why. Oh, we're not there yet.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. You're like, oh, a little tease. We do drive business success. We develop effective teams in order to deliver magical entertainment experiences. So we're constantly seeking to understand the marriage between the head of the business and the heart of the company, the relationship between science and religion, data and feeling. They're two sides to the same coin that I don't think should, and I don't think in some cases can exist without the other. When institutions like ours lose default participation, they don't win them back with tradition, they win them back with clarity, with relevance, with human connection. And that human connection has to be nurtured, certainly amongst our patron populations, but also internally amongst ourselves. This is a huge thing that we've been doing at B&B. To help us to achieve that, a common word has come to sort of define this period of transition, and for us that word is community. As I've worked to kind of grease the wheels of change within the organization, that word really provides me with all the guidance that I need. We talk all the time about everything. As close teams, as departments, as divisions, corporate, site-specific, you name it, we have an alignment meeting for it. I actually rather hate meetings, a lot, and I complain about some of them, but I love information. Navigating change requires leadership, sure, vision, grit, but all of that falls apart without communication. I know that's nothing new, but we were somehow very bad at it, despite how long we've kind of been in the game. So figuring out how to pivot during trying times requires buy-in from everybody. And the only way you can ask for it effectively is through internal, intentional, consistent communication. As I mentioned, I have 3 kids. I don't have to say how many I got. I got 3 kids. Almost 17, 13, and 8. Anybody got kids like that, spread like that, something? Cool. I don't know about yours. My kids are very, very different from one another. They respond to the same opportunities, the same challenges, the same tasks, sometimes in totally different ways. And parenting is a journey, of course, I've discovered. And one of my personal lessons is that my efficacy as a father has less to do on my personal capacities and strengths and perspectives and more on how well I know these kids. So years ago, I instituted a monthly tradition, roughly monthly, known as Pop Talks, like Pop Rocks. Okay, so basically once a month I sit down with every kid to do sort of a stealth interview with each child. And this is usually done like while we're playing video games or eating something or whatever, but it's done and it's always clear that it's happening. It's a dedicated, scheduled time, and they have come to understand the intent of these meetings. I care about them. I love them. I want to know how they're doing, what they're enjoying about life, what clear and present dangers have arisen since we last spoke, and how we can move together forward toward any goals that they might have. As you can imagine, the first of these meetings, and sometimes the current versions of these meetings, are awkward, have been awkward. Sometimes they're rushed, sometimes they're less than ideal, but over time, they have become invaluable touch points for me. My kids, I think, have come to better understand our family's vision and their role in its fulfillment. And I'm aware of their unique skills, their talents, their interests, and I'm better positioned to support them. So am I suggesting to you that you develop some sort of intimate parent-child relationship with those in your purview? I mean, yeah, I think maybe I am, within the appropriate framework of a professional workplace. I've been doing this thing, basically, a version of it at B&B for the better part of a year now. Every month, I meet with my boss, who is one of our 3 presidents. We have 3 presidents, they're all their siblings. So that's a thing that I do. And every month I meet with one of them, the same one typically, for an hour, just me and her. And then I meet with no fewer than 11 other individuals across creative and operations for one-on-one meetings. So I spend 12 hours a month in these meetings. And at first it felt obnoxious to me and inane. Occasionally it still does. But just like the Pop Talks, over time, and by way of familiarity, these things made way for honesty, for vulnerability, for growth, for progress, for conversation, for humor, for exposure, and ultimately for buy-in. And so these conversations have helped me to help other people understand the trajectory of our organization and their role in its bringing to pass. But more critically, we've discovered unique and personal sort of North Stars for each of these individuals. These are exclusive value adds that only they can bring to the table. So they all have their responsibilities and duties, but if they had an idea for a passion project or for a program that would help push us toward their goals, these conversations helped us to make room for that, or at least a trial of it. And this was a watershed moment for me. As we at B&B, and I specifically in many cases, worked to build community buy-in across our organization and across our personnel, that workforce became unified, and they became more interested in creating community for our guests. Do you remember there's like that old phrase, hurt people hurt people? You ever heard that? Well, supported, nurtured people support and nurture people. And we found that if we treat people the way they want to be treated, they will treat people the way they want to be treated. This was very real for us. So we felt positioned at this time to strike out into the wide world to try to build community for our guests. And it did become a numbers game. And that number is 1. That only one guest matters, only one transaction matters, the one that you're personally attending to. I have the wife of a mentor of mine, she told me one time that she used to get asked on occasion which of her children was her favorite. And she would say, whichever one needs my help at the moment. I think that needs to be our approach to our work as well. There's not really time to adequately explore the lessons that we learned at B&B about this specific thing, but there's an experience shared by the Savannah Bananas, which I think sums it up pretty neatly. You guys? Okay, cool. Jesse Cole is the owner of the Savannah Bananas. He wrote a book, Fans First, which is a good read. It's pretty easy to read, and it's plowed through in like an afternoon. The Bananas are a professional, entertaining, sort of barnstorming baseball team. And when the organization was very small and up and coming, the players and the owners were in the habit of calling. You know this. They would literally call on the phone everyone who attended the game. This was a couple hundred people. And they'd call and they'd be like, man, we're trying to make this thing super fun. Thank you for coming. They'd call everybody. And this was manageable because attendance was pretty low. The games were small, but that was not the case for long. And it's not the case now. The bananas are huge. Notoriety and acclaim exploded. They're selling out on stadiums now. And so it no longer was practical to call every attendee. It would take 165 hours to give 10,000 fans a 1-minute phone call. So it was obvious to them that the practice would need to be discontinued. Or would it? They resolved to continue the practice, but in a dramatically scaled down version. They couldn't call everybody, but they could call some people. And they still do. They do for the one what they wish they could do for the many, which is a beautiful thing to think about. And the ambition and the vision of that goal remains serviced. I've never been to a Savannah Bananas baseball game, but here I am talking about them as the model of hospitality and service. We've tried to do something similar at B&B, and time and resources simply don't allow us to deliver white glove concierge service to every single guest. I mean, in some days we have 3,000 people coming in to a building. But we can look for opportunities to deliver something exceptional to an individual and to never create an excuse to cheat them of an experience. I think this can and maybe should be true also of your relationships and interactions with new students who are enrolling or transfer students. They cannot always get undivided attention and access and convenience, but when they can, man, they should. And what matters, though, is that the spirit of that commitment becomes palpable and discernible. It will become part of your brand, a pledge that will serve as an identifier, as it has with the bananas. I'm gonna wrap up. We can go to the next one, though, because we've worked really hard at making our facilities into safe and accommodating places. We want people to feel comfortable. We strive to recognize what individual guest challenges might be. We try to build out solutions and systems to service those needs. And things have been good. I think our relevance is strengthening. We're solidifying a sense of corporate purpose. Our bottom line is impacting, but there is a powerful underlying reality that I think is worth discussing. It's this, it should not be ignored. We've learned that everyone is an influencer. Some of your students probably are paid influencers or are aspiring to be, and I think that's very sad. We can talk about that later. I don't necessarily mean that. I just mean that there is nothing more powerful than an individual who shares his or her experience. And people nowadays share chronically. They nearly always, share experiences that they perceive to be bad. Experiences that missed the mark in some way or failed to meet their expectations. And I think this is probably true of people who encounter friction with us and people who encounter friction along their transfer pathways. They will be willing to share how frustrating something was. So every experience that we create needs to be a converting reminder that they're doing the right thing. Because one dropped ball can be considered justification for changing course. They talk, and people listen, and behavior is affected. People are not always as inclined to share good experiences unless they are invited to. And we have made this one of the very few mandatory operational exchanges, is we shamelessly solicit feedback. We tell our guests, in effect, hey, our goal here is to create something exceptional for you. And if we do that, let us know, but also tell people, man, that you had a great time. We make no qualms about broadcasting our desire and frankly our need for their social influence. We also take every opportunity to express gratitude. We have found that softens hearts, it breeds loyalty. Again, not really familiar with the nature of your process, what governs your student interactions, but I wonder if you try it, you may learn the same lessons that we did. That candid, hard on your sleeve conversation, it touches people. They don't often experience it anymore. And if you were to lead a first interaction with a new student or a recent arrival, a transfer student, by saying, I don't know what your transfer pathway and what your experience has been up to this point, but A, I look forward to learning what that is, and B, I want to work to ensure that this aspect of it is one of the best and simplest and most positive of all of it. I suspect that not only would you likely achieve that end, but you would also create a zealot. You'd create a fan who would begin to do some of the lifting for you as he or she or they leave your institution and go out into the wide world telling people about every exchange that they had with your department. Someone who has been converted to your cause can become part of the solution to your problem. And we have definitely found that to be the case. I kind of hate how trite it is, but our value and our relevance will rise and return not as a result of like a marketing campaign telling people to come because they should or because they're expected to. They'll come when we show them that it's worth it. In 1989, Field of Dreams, man, I love this movie so much. Is this like a Cheers thing too? You guys know Field of Dreams? All right, came out in 1989, which is crazy. It's a well-known film. It's obviously about baseball and subtly, I think, more about magic and family and dreams. In the movie and in the book, Ray Kinsella, he's an Iowa farmer. He hears a voice in his cornfield. If you build it, they will come. He plows over his corn. He constructs a destination. And I think our fields, as it were built decades ago, generations ago, and for generations, they've been coming. But the game has changed. And the sentiment around the game has changed. And I think the pilgrimage to the destination is different. So that's my invitation as you guys launch into the COTA conference to explore what changes you can make individually, maybe collectively as a group or team, comprehensively as an industry. I don't know what's possible. But think about how you can appeal to your students' sense of belonging and sense of experience so that we can do what the Savannah Bananas did, which is reinvigorate a familiar tradition with heart, with energy, with personality, with intent. And I think if we can build that, they'll come back. Thank you guys. Have a great conference.